Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are going to start this week with two shows. One looking back at the Michigan game, one looking back at the Ohio State game. Tony, they say a good compromise leaves everyone angry. Tony, these next two shows are going to be a great compromise because Ohio State fans are not going to like the Ohio State rewatch, and Michigan fans are probably not going to like a lot of the Michigan rewatch. So both teams won, Tony. So I'm sure everyone's happy, right? Have I read the room correctly?
I'm just going to tell you, Tom, you would have been a terrible snake oil salesman back in the 1800s and the early 1900s. I'm just telling you,
Oh yeah, then why's your face on the bottle?
So enjoy this tonic, this brain tonic, as we discuss Ohio State's rousing 21-17, come from ahead, from behind, 21-17 win over Nebraska. So we went back and we both rewatched it. Here we are going to spout the things that we've noticed. And this is something that everybody saw live, but rewatching it, you really saw. And that is, I don't know how they went 2 weeks of practice believing that Zen Michalski was the right move at left tackle, because he had a very, very rough game. And by proxy, everybody else did as well on the offensive line and the running game. And I don't know what they were able to see in those 2 weeks of practice that led them to believe that this was the best move for them. I know he's got experience and he's played, and because that's what we talked about. We've talked about it for the last 2 weeks that, well, he's played offense every single game this year. He's gotten snaps. He's experienced. He's a fourth-year guy. We've seen guys step up before. Max Ray, way back when, stepping in out of the blue, and now you get this game of action, and it leads you to the next one. But I'm watching that first quarter again, watching the first drive again. A move should have been made by the second quarter to fix it, and whether that's helping him out or moving him out, because it didn't work the entire game. And so now you're in a situation you've really screwed things up now, because you could have spent the last 2 weeks with Donovan Jackson at left tackle. Ryan Day knew that was the next move. It's like, well, if this doesn't work out, then we're going to go to this. And as I said, and we both said after the game, they're more talented now with Donovan Jackson at left tackle. Knowing that, we're not the first to figure that out. I cannot believe after watching this that they felt this all, they shouldn't have felt like this was their best option going forward.
Yeah, I think there's several possible explanations there. None of them are great. One of them is you think it's going to be terribly disruptive to the rest of the offensive line to move the Donovan Jackson out there. Well, guess what? Michalski left on a cart, so now you may have that terribly disruptive solution to the issue. Or, Tony, would it make you feel better if I told you that maybe he was holding up better in practice because the Ohio State defensive line wasn't getting there? I don't know. Maybe that's a possible explanation. But man, I'm with you. The first drive was not great. The second drive, there were back-to-back plays where he ended up on the ground with the Nebraska rusher going past him. Right before halftime, Ohio State's got the ball. They're up 14-3. They're driving. They're in Nebraska territory. You get a chance to go up 17-3, 21-3, really kind of seize control of the game. And then he gets beat, and there's the strip sack on Will Howard where, Donovan Jackson got on the ball and sort of saved the day. But then on the next play, he gets beat again. Austin Searville gets beat on that third down play. So then you're kicking a field goal, and they miss the field goal. And all of a sudden, it's 14, instead of being 21-3, Nebraska goes into halftime at 14-6. You have an opportunity to give a team that is coming off a 56-7 win or loss a chance to quit. Like, by all means, if you have a chance to take a team and give them an opportunity to quit, you should do that. And they were not able to do that, and a lot of it stemmed from the issues on the offensive line, specifically the issues at left tackle. And you never want to see a guy get hurt. That's never a good thing. Even if he ends up just being a depth guy this year, that's never a good thing. But watching that game again, I think even if he was healthy, I don't think he's the guy at left tackle next week against Penn State. But either way, now you got a week where you're going to travel on Friday. So you've got your practices through Thursday to kind of get this figured out now. It is that is a big concern. That is the one position, normally people will look at the quarterback position and go, overstate the importance of that one thing in terms of the outcome of whatever the next game is. Boy, that left tackle position for Ohio State and the offensive line in the whole is a big all caps concern. That is a problem for Ohio State right now. And I don't know how they're going to solve it. And I guess we can just look even broader at the offensive line. There were lots of problems on the offensive line. There were, Zen Michalski had a bad game, but there were plays where Donovan Jackson got beat. There were plays where Austin Searveld got beat. Yeah, I feel like Seth McLaughlin had a pretty good game, and Josh Fryer, I think, was okay more often than not, but at least in pass pro. But the running, my goodness, the lack of holes in the running game was astonishing. It is impossible to have two running backs as good as Ohio State has, and a wide receiver core as good as Ohio State has, and to not, where the defense has to respect the passing game. And there are no holes there. There was a moment where right after halftime, I was a little late coming out after halftime, and normally I shoot from the direction that Ohio State's going towards. So I've always got Ohio State's face, offense and defense coming towards me. So you want their faces in the pictures. Okay. So I was a little late coming out from halftime. Ohio State was going from right to left on your TV. So I came out from under South Stands and then shot the first couple plays before the end of the first drive from behind. So I have pictures that show what the plays look like from the quarterback's perspective or the running back's perspective. I have one of Quinshawn Judkins, and he's looking at a hole that's about that big. And it turns out he was not able to, suck in his gut and twist himself sideways and slide through the, slide under the door and reach back and grab his hat Indiana Jones style. And then there's another one where Will Howard is back there and Donovan Jackson just got absolutely beat. And there's a rusher right in his face almost immediately. And you see that and it's like, boy, that's a problem. That is, if you'd like to neutralize a wide receiver core as talented as Ohio State's and a running back core as talented as Ohio State's, you either need world-class secondary play and world-class linebacker play and world-class defensive line play on the other side, or you need an offensive line that is an absolute tire fire. And unfortunately for Ohio State, that is sort of where things are right now.
Yeah, and I wonder, and it's not like Donovan Jackson has been at this unbelievable All-American level this year. I do wonder how much of his struggles in this game were from being concerned about Zen Michalski. And again, I'm not trying to pick on the guy because you can only be as good as you are. I'm not saying, it's not his fault he's playing. He's been around for a while and they put him in a tough situation for him. And so I wonder how well things will get for Donovan Jackson now, assuming he's going to be the guy. And if he's not, I'll be shocked. But we'll get more from Ryan Day on Tuesday and get that answer. But again, we said it after the game, we have no idea what kind of left tackle Donovan Jackson's going to be. He had one series and then 3 kneel downs basically to get an idea. And the offensive line as a whole wasn't able to run the clock and keep the ball. So yes, I think, like I said, it's more talented. I'm still concerned, still wondering, Austin Searveld still mixing in is just bizarre at this point. I don't know how often that happens nationally because we don't really pay attention to other offensive lines like that. But when he got beaten badly on one of those that led to a pressure, and I understand that they want him to play, but man, it's a situation now. Maybe it's going to pay off if he moves to left guard. We'll see if that's going to be him or Luke Montgomery. But the offensive line as a whole has just been a little bit. It was a strength. It looked like it was a strength early on, but we knew that the one guy that you couldn't lose, they've lost, and now They've lost his backup, and we'll see for how long. But it's the whole weakest link thing has come into play, and now everybody else has to step their game up. And just in terms of the offensive line, like, don't worry about that stuff. Do your job, and as long as you're doing your job, you can build around that. You can scheme around that. When you're not doing your job, you can't scheme around. You can't scheme up anything.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern with the line going into Penn State is the coaching staff clearly felt that Zen Michalski at left tackle was the best of their solutions. So if that's what the best of their solutions look like, I have concerns about what the fallback positions on that potential solution would look like. So we'll see. They lost, as you said, they lost the guy who we had identified over the summer as here's the one guy you can't afford to lose. Now you've lost the backup to that spot. We'll see how long Michalski's out. My sense is it's probably not a short-term thing, just based on the fact that he walked off very slowly and gingerly, not under his, entirely under his own power, and then got carted off. That is not generally a 1 week thing. So now you're looking at whatever plan C for the offensive line was. And you also, something that shouldn't go unnoticed here is Will Kazmarek being out for the short to medium term with whatever that arm injury is. He is the best probably of the blockers of the tight end. So if you were going to have a tight end over there to help the left tackle, well, now he's out too. So now you have not your best blocking tight end in there. And all of this stuff adds up. They're going to have to get real creative, I think, at this point. Like you might be able to scheme your way out of some of this with some creative calling, get the ball out quick, do some of the stuff that teams do to Ohio State, get the ball out quick, try and run the ball outside. You got to just mix it up and just, figure it out. This is a Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, you're getting paid a lot of money, figure it out kind of situation, because there is no midseason transfer portal and the goals remain the goals. So this is going to be a very, very interesting thing to watch how they try and get around all of that. My next one, well, Tony, how about this? Let's make this a positive one.
Oh,
holy smokes. Cody Simon had a heck of a game. Cody Simon had 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. Very, very good game. I think it kind of got lost a little bit because, it was Caleb Downs made the types of plays that were so obviously important and crucial that I could even see them on the sidelines looking through a camera viewfinder. Cody Simon had some huge ones at the end of the game, but was just very, very good throughout the game. That's one of those things where no one took time to appreciate it after the game because everyone was just mad about everything. But, that is a moment where you need your senior leader, captain, Block O jersey recipient to step up in those enormous moments, even, especially after the Arvell Reese ejection. That's a moment where the game is hanging in the balance. Nebraska has the ball close to midfield. They've got a minute and whatever left on the clock. You could have a game-losing drive there. And Cody Simon made some incredibly important plays. He's someone who I think a couple people in their comments on our show mentioned him. It just on the post-game show. But man, he was so good in such an important moment on Saturday.
Yeah, he was reading and reacting and then also making the tackle. It's great when you're doing the first. It's even better when you're doing the second because we've seen some missed tackles at linebacker this year, and he locked it down, making those 2 tackles for loss when they absolutely needed to have them. And he had another one earlier in the game. So a very good game from him, something that is a confidence builder. And for a guy wearing the Block O jersey to step up when the defense absolutely had to stop, had to get a stop. That's one of the reasons he's got that jersey. And I think that's a confidence builder for the entire defense. And just do it again. When you know that the next time you're in this situation, and you will be in this situation again, you know that you can get the job done. It's the proof of concept that we talked about with the Oregon game. The offense didn't get the drive done at the end, but we knew they would be in the situation where they had to get it done later on this season. And I think they answered the call this time by Nebraska scores to take the lead, and then Ohio State answers right back, marches right down the field. So good to just have those instances of we are able to do this. I don't care who it's against. When you're trailing against Nebraska, it probably feels like you're trailing against it doesn't matter. You're the back. Your back is against the wall. All of the pressure is on you. Like, so being able to make plays and respond and just march down the field or stop somebody from marching down the field is huge, no matter the opponent, because it's very easy to just miss a play and lose a game, and they didn't. So yes, he was also on my list. So I commend you, Tom, for speaking of somebody who had a good game. I thought you might miss that one. How about this one? And this is something that I may be contradicting myself now, but watching the way they ran the ball and the way that Will Howard did not run the ball, I'm thinking the entire time, these can't be reads. These are just handoffs, because defensive ends are crashing down, stopping the ball. It looked exactly like last year's running game when you knew Kyle McCord wasn't going to pull the ball, and CJ Stroud wasn't going to pull the ball. It was just, these are handoffs, not accounting for the D end. We're just hoping that the running back can get upfield before he gets crashed down on. And then after the game, Will Howard was asked about the, how much of the running game issues do you put on yourself? And so then his answer, and I'll read it for you, or at least I'll read the automated transcript. So there may be a couple of words wrong here, but here's what he said. It's kind of, the first part is what I remember most, and that he said, I don't know if we had that much in this week in terms of pulling the ball. But so here's the entire thing. Yeah, absolutely. I try to take responsibility for everything in this offense. I think that my ability to run the ball, pull the ball, and run has a really good effect on this offense. The more that I'm able to do that, the better. I don't know if we had that much in this week, but I think I was a little more aggressive to keep the ball on that last drive. They've been crashing in on the running backs over and over. I haven't really pulled one yet. Late in the game, when the game's on the line, my legs come into the picture a lot more. So I'm confused by this, Tom, because we didn't have it in, or we didn't have it in that much, but then I was more aggressive to keep on the last drive. So when he's saying we didn't have the run in, in my mind, and we were talking about this on the Chalk Talk thread on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus, where there's, you never really know if it's a read or not necessarily, because it's all supposed to look the same way. But, him saying, well, we didn't really have it in that much, and then saying I was more aggressive with it in the fourth quarter, that tells me that no, these were mostly reads, and maybe you just weren't pulling it.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I would love to get an answer on Tuesday. We'll see if we do get an answer on it on Tuesday. Ross Fulton on Saturday night, our X's and O's guru at BuckeyeHuddle.com, he put a couple plays on Twitter. One of the things he said is, can't decide if OSU's reliefs and reads were mostly not live today, or if Howard wasn't seeing things correctly, but they're back into running into unfavorable looks. And he cited a play where they had 3-over-2, which means Ohio State has 3 wide receivers out on one side of the field. Nebraska had 2 defensive backs over those guys. So that's one where if it's a read, that's not a difficult read. That's I can count to 3 and I can count to 2. So that to me suggests probably not a read on that one. And then, there's another one that he tweeted, and I retweeted both of these on Saturday, but he says very next play, Ohio State has 2-over-1 and then didn't do it. And both of those plays, that was a 2nd and 2 where they got stuffed, a 3rd and 1 where they got stuffed, because the numbers say you pull it, you throw it. Didn't do it on either one. There was another one at one point during the game that I pulled out where it was 2nd and 2, and it looked like, well, everyone's crashing down on Travion Henderson, and Will Howard didn't pull it, hands it to Travion Henderson, gets tackled for a 4-yard loss, 2nd and 2 turns into 3rd and 6, which turns into a punt. I think they probably just didn't have it in for whatever reason. Maybe they thought this was going to be an easier win than it was. I don't know, but that would be my guess, but I'm interested in the answer this week.
Yeah, and maybe maybe it's the calls that were getting more aggressive in the fourth quarter, because clearly they needed it, and it worked. I think he had 2 or 3 runs on that last drive.
Yeah, and in those moments where, you're probably breaking glass in case of emergency to a certain degree in those moments. But yeah, it was not if it was a read, the correct read was not made, and if the decision was you don't need to make it a read, that probably was also not the correct decision. There was a couple times there was a shocking number of 2nd and 2s that turned into things that didn't get converted. First drive was like that, but there were a bunch during the course of the game where 2nd and 2 turns into. The first drive was, I think, 2nd and 2 turns into 3rd and 10 because of a sack. But there were 2nd and 2 turns into 3rd and 6, and 2nd and 2 turns into 3rd and 4. If you have 8 yards on first down, that conversion should be almost automatic, and it was not. And there's the offensive line issues certainly play a factor in that, and probably the lack of reads or incorrect reads either way play a factor in that. But yeah, even when they got to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, it was not always easy. It was easy when they ran the quarterback sneak, and it was just Will Howard just lines up under center and just plows forward for 4 yards. That's what it should look like with Ohio State. You've got Donovan Jackson in there. Well, maybe not for long at guard, but Seth McLaughlin at center. They were getting a good push inside and moving the ball. Hager Shabola as well. They were getting a good push at times in there, and then it's 4th and 1, and they line up with Will Howard in shotgun and throw the ball to Emeka Egbuka out in the flat. That's probably not, that's something where there's a bunch of stuff that can go wrong there. And if you can line up and just get it, until they stop the quarterback sneak, I think you just keep running the quarterback sneak until they show you, hey, this doesn't work, you got to do something else. Because anytime you're introducing complexity into a situation where your offensive line is not great, it feels like you're inviting bad things to happen. Hey, someone came off the right edge and just got a fingertip on the pass, and that deflected it, and the receiver was open, but the pass got deflected, or hey, whatever. I mean, there's a million different things that can go wrong there. It feels like that might be a keep it simple situation, and they did not do that at times, and it ended up working out. The pass to Egbuka was completed, but have they gotten stopped on a, outside of maybe one goal line situation, have they gotten stopped that you can remember on a 4th and 1 type quarterback sneak? Because it feels like that's been pretty successful consistently.
Yeah, there may be one, and they've not been stopped, because that was one of my notes as well. They just need to run the sneak more. And certainly in this one, they should have run it 3 or 4 times, especially as successful as they were at first one, getting 5 yards or whatever. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Run the sneak more. They're very fortunate they got 3 yards on that 4th and 1 pass when they needed it on their scoring drive to take the lead. It was interesting because watching this and then thinking about it back after the fact, I'm thinking, well, they must have been really struggling on first down to have all of these negative, the shortcomings on 3rd and down. And then I went and charted. They threw the ball 8 times on 19 first downs. And so that's a fine mix, but here are the yardage they got on their first down plays in this game. 8, -1, 15, 8, 6, 40, 4, 9, 17, 4, 2, interception, 2, 8, 37, 3, 7, 9, 1. There's enough big numbers there for you to have much more success on 3rd down. And not all of these plays led to 3rd downs because some of them were first downs in themselves. But, 8, 8, 6, 9, 8, 7, 9, those should be conversions every single day. And they weren't. And so you again, goes back to the offensive line, the play calling. How much of this offense was as open as it's been in the past in terms of the running game? Because this looked like a very last year type of running game. But we'll see what next week's looks like against a defense that is going to be ready for pretty much, they're a physical defense, so that they get ready by being physical.
Yeah, this is going to be a real stern test for this team, and it is going to be coming in with probably a little bit of a lack of confidence, because I don't know how confident you can be in a ground game that was negative 0.39 EPA per play on the ground. So basically, every time you ran the ball, you cost yourself about 0.4 of a point in terms of expected value. That's not great. And they had, the yards per drop back, 12.28, 97th percentile in terms of when you drop back to pass, how many yards did you get? 12.28, 97th percentile. Yards per rush, no. Safe to say not good. I'm trying to pull up the yards per rush.
7th percentile.
EPA per play for Ohio State was on pass plus 0.2, on rush negative 0.4. That is every time you're rushing the ball, every time you're running the ball, you are hurting yourself. Every time you're throwing the ball, you're helping yourself. And this is I looked at kind of the baseline stats during the postgame show, and it was when they completed a pass, it was good for 17 yards on average. When they ran the ball, it was good for 2 yards on average. Like, I really don't want to oversimplify this, but also I don't know that there's another interpretation other than you should probably be throwing the ball more. And that was one of my other big takeaways is you have Jeremiah Smith out there. I talked about this on the postgame show.
Mm-hmm.
You targeted him 4 times in the passing game. You did not hand him the ball. 3 of them went for gains. The 4th one that did not go for a gain was thrown high, and the throw led him out of bounds, but he went up over 2 defenders and caught it anyway, and then just wasn't able to get in bounds. There is not a bad outcome that comes from throwing the ball up to Jeremiah Smith and just letting him try and do some, the Jeremiah Smith do something cool play. I don't want to oversimplify things, but if you have a guy who can do that, you should do that. They threw the ball up to Carnell Tate a few times. Carnell Tate made some big plays. Emeka Egbuka didn't have big yardage, but he had some important plays that he made. You have these wide receivers. If your offensive line is not good, there is a way to get the ball to these guys in space and just let them do something. If you have, as we talked about earlier, like a 3-over-2, you have to pull the ball and you have to throw it. Like, the run game is not there, was never there. It was just not a thing. And you have to be able to recognize that and say, okay, I know this wasn't in the game plan, but I know it's in the playbook. I know they've practiced those plays. I know we have seen them pull the ball on those reads and throw it out there. If it's there, you have to be able to take it, whether it was part of the game plan this week or not.
Taking it, the deep shots, they took 2 and converted. They dialed up another one because you saw Will Howard late in the second quarter drop back and kind of cock the hammer, but then had to pull it down and look elsewhere. I don't recall seeing that happen at all in the second half. And I know the pass protection was an issue, but they did connect on 2 and they tried a third. I didn't see anything like that in the second half in terms of trying to dial up something deep or even look deep. And I understand you're concerned about the pass protection and you well should be, but also you were successful throwing deep twice to not really go after it more. And, if Nebraska kept their safeties back and kept you from doing that, that's fine. Why couldn't you run the ball? So it's impossible to do both unless you're getting some help. And so I was surprised that they did not at least call more of those. A couple of last things that I've got, saw plenty of stunts and a lot of different pass rushing, which was good and it was effective. One of I think the 37-yard scramble by Dylan Raiola was maybe on Jalen McClain, doubling up and running with the receiver that Lorenzo Styles was already covering. He had a couple of freshman mistakes, which you would expect. The last thing that I have, Tom, the spotting by officials this year is piss poor all over college football. There was one in this one where Will Howard was shorted 2 or 3 yards on a run. That was the one that came after the goal line stand, and he picked up on a sneak another 4 or 5 yards or whatever, and they gave him like 2 yards. I think it was last week. Colston Loveland was gifted like 4 yards on a play, and then they had to review it and actually go back and look. And it's like, and these aren't the only. Nebraska got shortchanged full like 2 or 3 yards on a play where they got the first down, but it was marked short. And so, boy, it's for all of the control rooms that you have in the Big Ten and all of the televisions and things like that, the on-field officiating in terms of spotting the ball has been pretty bad this year. And then I'll say, well, yeah, but they get most of them right. I understand that, but you shouldn't be getting this many wrong by this many yards.
Right. If you're off by a half a yard, you're off by a half a yard. That's one thing. If you're missing by multiple yards and there is a replay system in effect to prevent this from being an issue, the fact that it's not getting caught is in and of itself an issue. I would also lump we talked about a bunch of these calls during the post-game show. The one offensive pass interference call against Nebraska, I think it was right before halftime or early third quarter. That was not great. The one at the end of the game, that was a legitimate call. There are some not great calls throughout the course of the game. I was excited to watch the TV copy to see, was there an angle on the Arvell Reese targeting call that was, like I see why you made this decision. And I did not come away impressed with the evidence, the preponderance of evidence on that one in terms of what that call should have been. We'll see if that could potentially get overturned. That's something the Big Ten does sometimes, and other leagues will do sometimes, is you get a call and then it will get overturned so that the player doesn't have to sit the next week. It'll be interesting to see if that does get changed this week. It felt like, okay, it wasn't helmet to helmet, and we know it just has to be a forcible blow to the head, but it was a forcible blow unless his head is in the middle of his chest, it didn't feel like a forcible blow to the head. But again, we'll see how that one goes. A couple other things that I had, really nice job using G. Scott to stay on schedule a few times. Not big, exciting numbers by any means, but a couple really big plays for the Buckeyes. He had 2 catches, 20 yards, an 11-yarder and a 9-yarder. He was only targeted twice, but a couple good examples of using him. One of them was a check down. I think it might have been one of the ones where Will Howard is looking at going deep, checked it down, and then boom, instead of, heaving one downfield or taking a chance or whatever, you take what's there and you get 9 yards out of it. So that felt like something that, that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit this year, but he has been a very, very useful player in those kind of situations. We have good, we have bad on special teams. I'm not even going to get into the field goal. That field goal looked terrible on the field and it somehow looked worse on TV. So, that was not even close. Ryan Day was asked after the game, do you have faith in your kicker? And he said, yes. We'll see how that goes. If they're lining up for a 45-yarder next week to try, they're down 1 and they've got to win the game at Penn State with a 45-yarder, how confident is Ryan Day really? We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they manage that kind of a situation next week. Kick return continues to be terrible. They are 130 something in the country in terms of kick return yardage, and had a 17-yarder and 18-yarder. I think they tried to return 2 kicks, and I don't think they got to the 25 on either one of them. That's bizarre to me. One thing I did like, Caleb Downs at punt returner. That was, I think that's like, he looks dynamic back there. You see a number 2 back there, and it's like, it looks like stockier than Emeka Ibuka, and it is Caleb Downs. That feels like you might need that in a big moment. And you see him making plays on, did we talk about Caleb Downs on this show? Or do I just have him on? No. Okay. So let's have the Caleb Downs conversation real quick. Incredible game. You are now seeing why he was so highly touted at Alabama, why he was so highly sought in the transfer portal. Incredible, great plays at the line of scrimmage, made a couple potentially touchdown saving tackles in the back end of the defense. He was all over the place, big plays everywhere. I would like to see the ball in his hands more. I feel like we've seen a bunch of punt returns that have not, a bunch of punts fielded over the last few years that have not really done anything. He looks like, I would, I find your ideas intriguing, would like to subscribe to your newsletter in terms of Caleb Downs at punt returner. And finally, it's 14-9. Will Howard throws an interception. Nebraska starts a drive at the Ohio State 7 with 7 minutes and 11 seconds left in the third quarter, down 14-9 at the Ohio State, I'm going to say it again, 7-yard line. They get that 4th down stop, that goal line stand. is one of the biggest plays of the season that no one is going to remember by the end of this year. That was an enormous play. And then the offense went 3 and out. Nebraska got the ball once again in Ohio State territory. Defense once again gets a stop. Those are 2 drives that, again, no one is going to remember those when, if Ohio State's holding the big trophy in Atlanta on January 20th, no one's going to remember those 2 drives. Those were 2 of the biggest drives of the season.
Yeah. Ran up the middle twice for nothing, then ran it 3rd and long and got 4 yards and was stopped. Something I tweeted out after the game is that, Tom, Ohio State needs a special teams coordinator. It's not working. There's nothing there. There's nothing of what are you doing to improve your position, your field position. This was a good game for Joe McGuire. His best game. Flipping the field is still not easy for this program. Return game, the kickoff return game, as you said, is non-existent. And so, that's, they have assistants who work on special teams, and not just the 10 assistants, they've got other people. But you need to do something better because this isn't, it's not good. I don't know how many special teams are great out there, but I know this is not, this one isn't either.
Yeah, well, and, Rob Keys and Gunnar Daniel are 2 of the assistants that work on the special teams. And I don't know that I put any of this on them because I think a lot of the stuff in terms of kick return has just not been a thing for Ohio State for years. Going back to Urban Meyer, it was just catch the ball and give it to the offense and trust the offense to score. This is like a decade of this now. That's how you go 10 years without returning a punt for a touchdown and 14 years without returning a kickoff for a touchdown. And, it sort of gets preached about as this is this big thing and you can, find these tiny edges and kicking the ball to the, to the outside, the numbers, inside the, all the stuff that Urban Meyer talked about all the time. And the importance of these guys on being gunners and Denzel Burks on kickoff coverage. And, they take this stuff seriously. But also, so it's like there's that philosophy, but there's also, when was the last time you saw Ohio State come after a punt?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nebraska punted the ball a bunch. And every time I'm like, I wonder if they're going to come after this one. This would be a good time to come after the punt. And it's, no. Just kick the ball off, get a touchback, punt the ball, can fair catch the kickoffs. And if you don't fair catch the kickoffs, it doesn't go for anything. And there's never coming after a punt. You never, when was the last time they tried a surprise onside kick? That was actually, they were supposed to do a surprise onside kick or a fake punt. It was like all those trick plays in recent years had miscommunication involved in them somehow. It just philosophically feels like it's just an area where I don't know that Ryan Day is looking for those big edges. And we'll see. Maybe they come after a punt in a bigger game against Penn State. But, there were some big moments. There were some moments when a blocked punt or an onside kick or something like that might have made a difference against Oregon, might have made a difference against Nebraska. We saw that it made a big difference for Oregon to have a surprise onside kick. And it wasn't even a surprise, but it still worked. It was, that's an area where I think Ohio State may be leaving some meat on the bone. And again, I don't put that on the current special teams coaches. So don't find them on Twitter and yell at them. I don't think it's on them. I think you just look at the big picture, and I think just philosophically, that's just not something that this program, they talk about it, but they don't actually do it. And that goes beyond just 1 year or, one coach.
Yeah, no, it definitely starts from the head coach on down. Nobody knows who who is the actual special teams coach for Virginia Tech during Frank Beamer's time. Everybody just called it Frank Beamer special teams because of the punt blocks and the kick blocks that they were known for. So I think maybe now with the offense struggling, maybe they tried to become more aggressive, but I don't know that it's also something that, now we're aggressive on special teams. It's like, well, that's not who we are. Well, we need to be. It's like, but I don't know how to do that because we've never done that. So who knows how well we'll actually do it. So there you go. Hey, everybody, hit the thumbs up for being happy. Ohio State got a win. hit the thumbs up on the YouTube if you would. We would appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. Hit the bell to be notified when we go live, drop new videos and things of that nature. And of course, if you're listening to your podcast platform of choice, 5-star rating and review would be lovely. And always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a premium member. Say hello to us there on the message board. See what's going on behind the paywall. We'd love to see you there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.